I mean, this is very cool, Nakaba, but what are we doing? What's up, guys? They go with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Well, fun fact, here we are to do a breakdown and review of chapter 235 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, which is known as Visitors from Beyond. And, yeah, this chapter does some heavy-handed hard confirming of what we got here. But I am genuinely intrigued. Like, especially now, knowing that these are the kids of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, right? The sons, as a certain someone will go on to say later on this very chapter. I do genuinely wonder, from the bottom of my left big toe, did Nakaba just recently play Fire Emblem Awakening or something? Like, it's insane. But I think Nakaba just must have picked up Fire Emblem Awakening, got his 3DS out one last time, and then was like, actually, this is a peak plot point. Because what are they doing here? Like, I'll go into it more in the core meat of the review itself, but this is really, really cool. I'm glad we're getting to see these characters, but, okay. A lot to handle, but with it being the case, let's hop into this beautiful color cover page. I must say, as much as I do like Galahad's regular manga design, their color design just isn't really it for me. I did consistently forget that their mother has purple hair, so them having purple hair makes sense, and does seem to continue the trend of the women of Bond's line, like, always passing down their hair color. Meanwhile, the crimson eyes stay the same. Like, Lance has red eyes, Bond has red eyes. I believe his mother also had red eyes, but I'm not sure about that part. But then the hair color, I believe Bond's dad was like a brunette, but then he got his mom's white hair. We know that Lance inherited his mother's blonde hair, and now Galahad inherited a majority of his mother's purple hair. And I'd say it's just flat out purple, not even like a hint of blonde, because it just looks like that. So Galahad, facial design looks cool. They do look like a solid mix of their parents, and also their hair design is actually nice. I actually do like the purple, and the fact that it's slightly off from the katana that they wield, also very, very neat. And I do like the gold. Maybe it's not too bad. I think it's mainly the pants and the shirt where I'm like, a little bit on the color design. But I do actually even like the gold color. It's a very, very calm, little, casual, nice little adventurer fit. For Lohengrin. Lohengrin? I'm going to struggle with it now. I'm just calling him Lo. So Lo has my favorite design. I think I was initially going to say this is my favorite design, but the more and more I look at Lo's design, it looks really, really cool. And it does remind me of their grandmother's armor design. I had to double check to make sure I wasn't insane. It literally takes my favorite piece of Meliodas' king design, which is the fluffiness around the neck, and attaches it to one of my favorite armor designs in the entire series, which is literally just Anne's mom's armor design. And be like, how's that one of your favorite armor designs in the entire series? We've gotten like 3 panels of it. Exactly. It's that good. So yeah, their design is peak, and I do like the way that the green fades into the blonde. That's very intriguing, especially since, like, their mother isn't blonde. And I don't think Ironside is either. I don't know where the yellow comes from. Like, I'm assuming, like, this yellow is just like a faded green. Maybe this is all just meant to be like a hard reference to Percy, though. Like, they do directly have their father's eye color and hair color, while they literally did steal their mother's entire face. Like, that just is Anne, again, with a different haircut. But with it being the case, their fit is my favorite. I do love the color. I want to say it's pink. I want to say I don't think it's maroon, but the pink with the purple with the silver armor looks immaculate, and the black fluff is fantastic, and the fade into the braid is immaculate. Then we have Cardier, and they are literally just their mama. Like, darn, as a notorious, BT dubs, I'm also literally just the male version of my mother. Yeah, that's just their mother. Like, they are straight up their mother, and they are actually referred to with he pronouns at this point. So I do genuinely believe they are, like, man? Question mark? And they probably didn't inherit the same, like, they should be only a quarter fairy, so maybe their gender was actually set from birth in comparison to their mother. But with it being the case, they do look exactly like their mother. That's literally just not seen his face. And they have, I do like the detail, though, that in comparison to Lohengrin, who seemingly inherited a majority of, like, her mother's straightness of hair, and it is ending up being braided in the same way, she's a thicker braid than what Anne has. For Lohengrin, you can see that they do have a majority of their mother's hairstyle, like the draping down, but they have some little bits of the wing aspects that Percy has with the upturns of the hair at the end. And it is interesting that Nakaba went with like a straight brown blonde split. I kind of prefer if it would have been a bit more faded, just like with Lohengrin, their sister. But regardless, it is a really cool design, and it's very interesting that they consistently do this invisibility thing. Like, we don't actually see their full proper color design here because they're mostly faded out. And I'm not sure if this is an aspect of their clothes or one of their abilities of their own, as we only see them use Chastiefel this chapter. But still, also a really, really solid design. Then, for this character, Isaye, I believe Isaye. They are immaculately designed. Like I said, if I didn't look at this armor a little bit harder and be like, wow, that's actually my literal favorite thing ever, I would 100% say that Isawe has my favorite design, Isaye, because the bright blonde hair, the Gilthunder face, the earring, the silver armor, the wings adorning the entirety of the armor, even the spear, it's just immaculate. Simple, sweet, clean, well-designed, looks scrumdiddlyumptious, I ain't gonna lie to you, Chief. And then we have Iliwark. There you go. Yeah, I've remembered. Iliwark. Very simple design. Just a black open back leotard with very extensive gloves. And unlike any... I actually do have to mention this. Green hair into yellowish hair makes sense, just because that's kind of Percy's hair color for the most part. Brown hair from their mother. Greenish, yellowish hair from Percy. Makes sense. Purple hair, but maybe slightly lighter than Guinevere's purple. Makes sense, because that's a merger of their blonde father and purple-haired mother. They're adopted, so they don't have to look like their adopted mother. Why is he blonde? I'm assuming it's just Mel. Like, the blondness skipped a generation. Tristan inherited basically none of his mother's traits, and Isolde isn't blonde, but this is like deep, rich, golden Nakaba yellow. Same color that Meliodas' hair is. So yeah, I guess the trait was just recessive. And bada bing bada boom, Isaye has that hair color. But still, I do like Iliwark's design. Simple, nice, and I do like the extended arms. Like, notably, while everyone else tends to have like the rather typical Nakaba silhouette, thanks to the extended arms, Iliwark has a very unique silhouette in comparison. So overall, really good designs. Really good designs, I would say. Nakaba, man, they do struggle to miss when it comes to this design work. But hopping into the chapter itself, we do get to catch up with the Knights of the Holy Grail, as they are being monitored by the actual Knights of Camelot, who, of course, are still running around, as this is their home realm. As they go, hey, look at that. Invaders. I've never seen that group before. Likely associated with them. Which is hilarious, considering that's exactly, like, that the actual four knights associated the Knights of the Holy Grail with Camelot. Camelot is associating the Knights of the Holy Grail with the four knights, and four knights are associating the Holy Grail with Camelot. Camelot is associating the Holy Grail with the four knights, and then the four knights are being associated just as enemies by both sides. So our main cast, our titular cast, is actually the ones mainly messed up here. But with it being the case, we see they are being monitored by numerous Chaos Knights, but obviously they do not care. Iliwark goes on to say, you know, though, fakers or not, the intensity from that man just floored me. Which is crazy to think about. Like, Lance, presumably, at least from my understanding last chapter, wasn't even full form flexing. No magical aura, no nothing. Him just casually flexing was enough to have even Galahad, who was able to no-sell a hit from their father, looking like, huh? And genuinely concerned. And we see that Galahad isn't even going to focus on the whole idea of, yeah, you know, that faker was actually kind of like that. Like, I wasn't expecting them to just do a basic bare minimum cut. I was supposed to slice their face open. But we see Galahad say, I'm more floored by how much skin you show, Iliwark. Which, Galahad is the youngest of the group, as we'll find out. So I guess he has his things. I mean, you know, though, no, I just say don't look if it's that deep to you. But he did essentially bring on the teasing that Iliwark really puts on him by saying, if you're curious, I can let you get hands on a bit. And naturally we see Isaye immediately defending Galahad, going, hey, stop picking on him. Which is hilarious, because he is actually genuinely the baby of the group. I believe, in fact, that Isaye is 4 years older? 4 years? Isaye is 4 years, and Iliwark is 5 years older, yeah. So half a decade, pretty big gap, though Galahad is actually 18. He's the only one of our cast that's actually the same, or the ones of this new cast who's the same age as our current main cast is. But we do see that Galahad does turn a little bit, blushing a little bit, freakified out, which is hilarious, especially considering, like, I'm trying to think of his lineage. I don't know if his lineage is particularly freaked out. I mean, actually, you know what, though? Guinevere is weirdly freaked out because she's like weirdly a 71-year-old woman. I don't know. Her abilities are weird. But regardless, we see Galahad turn away, and Isaiah goes, one of them was called Lancelot, if I recall. What do you think, Galahad? Which is crazy to think, right? Like, I don't know how I would react if I spontaneously ran into a younger version of my father. I think I would recognize him if it was like a direct confrontation. If he just like walked up to me one day, I'd probably look at him and be like, what? Oh, no. Like, I'd be very confused. But at the same time, I can't blame them for immediately not assuming that that's actually their real parents, because they likely don't have direct photo evidence of what they look like at this point. And also, yeah, does just seem very, very strange why they would be here in this context, in this moment. But at the same time, I do wonder the same thing about this current cast of ours. What are they doing in this context here in this moment? Bad future? Fire Emblem Awakening? I say Sonic 06, but I mean, like, that's a little bit different. But with it being the case, Galahad is consulted, and he goes, honestly, it drives me up the wall. The real one is 10 times stronger than him. Now, I took a little peek. I've seen people run rampant with this 10 times stronger statement. I'm perfectly fine with Lance getting 10 times stronger than Infinity already. Don't get me wrong. But the only reason I'm going to take this with a slight bit of grain of salt is I don't think Lance was full flexing, right? I genuinely don't think he was. And also, it doesn't appear that Lance even has the Sacred Treasure yet. And obviously, we know the Sacred Treasure multiplier can be way bigger than 10 times. But regardless, while Lance being 10 times stronger, presumably Galahad is 18 at this point. And we know, so like, presumably Galahad, Lance, by the time he has Galahad, if he's currently 18, you have to put 36 on there, just for the 18 years of Galahad being born. But we do know that Anne and Nasians are pregnant right now with Lohengrin and Cardia. So that's what? How many years is that? Because they are 25, so Galahad's 18. So Lance is currently 18. I'm doing silly math. I think Lance has Galahad at age 25, if I'm not mistaken on the math on that. Because 7 years after, you could argue it's 8 years though, right? Depending on how long, because of the 9-month incubation period of humans. So like 8 years. So Lance has Galahad at age 25 or 26, and then 18 years on top of that. So 8, we'll just do 8 plus 18. So 26 years. So Lance getting 10 times stronger in 26 years, it's not impossible, right? Like, it's not the most insane thing or the most unlikely possibility. But still, I don't think Galahad would be the most accurate narrator or source here, because I don't think Lance was genuinely going all out. He was flexing just a little bit. But with it being the case, we see that Lewark says, though, in a way. But actually, I do like that Galahad does generally get insulted over someone stealing their father's name. They seem very prideful or very proud of their heritage, and don't like the idea that someone would just be parading around wielding Lancelot's name when they aren't actually the real deal as far as they can tell. But with it being the case, we see Lewark say, though, in a way, that fake Percival was even more of a menace. Yeah, even copying his hairstyle and color. That's real dedication. That's very intriguing. It implies to me, like, Lance has not just a different hairstyle, but like a different hair color. Why does his hair change in the next 26 years? And I mean, like, change color? I don't know. Maybe it's just, there are a couple weird things in this chapter where I'm like, maybe it's just a translation thing. And that is one of them. Like, it's interesting that they know Percy's hair all those years later is exactly the same. Makes sense, he's light spirit. He may have legit just stopped his aging. But at the same time, Lance's hair color and hairstyle is different. Very intriguing. But with it being the case, we see that Lohengrin says, well, the real one doesn't look like that much of a dope. And Katie laughs at that, going, and that's intriguing. Percy gets, like, more, I'm assuming more rugged as he gets older. So he does still age. But he keeps the exact same hairstyle. He never seems to cut or change his hairstyle or hair color, as Lance maybe has done in the future. But with it being the case, we see that Lohengrin goes, Car, what's so funny? Which, I would have, like, sisters. I only have a brother. But, like, very, very accurate from the sibling brother-sister encounters I've seen in real life, and have sometimes accidentally been a part of. But with it being the case, we see Cardir say, well, tell me this, Lohengrin. How was it fighting with her? And we see that Lohengrin goes, it made me doubt myself as what? It was like she could read every one of my moves. Which is very intriguing, right? Ultimately, Gawain, who I didn't even realize she fought. In fact, hold on. I did do this after the review, after recording the live reaction, which you can over on Patreon for $1 a month, because members are $3 a month. But let me see. Did they actually? Okay, no. Let me take a look. Did they actually fight? I don't think they fought Gawain. Yeah, they used Scatter Rose on Percival. And let's see, full counter. Yeah, I don't know what they're talking. Like, this is one of the other weird translation things. It was like she could read every one of my moves. The only she there is Gawain. And let me check the next chapter. The chapter I literally just reviewed. Yeah, they don't fight. Like, I have no idea what on earth Lohengrin was talking about. They were fighting their father the entire time, as far as I could tell. But with that being the case, we see that Cartier says she had one thing in common with her: the ability to freely change her size. Weird girl. Which is interesting. So Gawain, even into the future, does not maintain a consistent buff form. They do consistently fluctuate between their forms. But with that being the case, Cartier says, sure felt like the real Gawain to me. Which implies that Gawain may have hit a point of stop aging, or like has stopped aging after a certain point because of her homunculus nature, or she casted the time spell stop, or the time stop spell that Merlin used, and or she's just like a lot of parents who, for some reason, are literally timeless for a long time. I mean, I'm cool with it though. I don't want them to age, but still, like, my parents look exactly the same as they did when they had me a very long time ago. And I look at pictures, I'm like, man, how I age this good? And I'm getting older, so we'll see. But with that being the case, we do see that Galahad tries to at least be a little bit cordial with Ilywark, going, here, Ilywark, did you want some jerky? And we see Ilywark turn around and say, come on, sure. Oh, wait, no, sure, I'll let you have a touch, big boy. Which is hilarious, as she's literally nearly twice as high. But we see she snatches the jerky out of his hand, Galahad zooms off, and she immediately gets to eating, very annoyed that they are claiming that her adopted mother is anything like that brutish oaf that they saw. As she says, why would the invincible master of the sun be turning huge and small like that? She's the most amazing holy knight there ever was. Don't lump her in with that girl. Which is intriguing. Like, once again, I feel like we're getting mixed signals, like, and we're gonna get another mixed signal not 2 seconds later, and another weird translation thing possibly. But so Cartier and Lohengrin know that Gawain changing size is a thing, and they treat it as normal. But Ilywark, their own adoptive daughter, doesn't know that Gawain does that. Like, I guess maybe Gawain just maintains something around her specifically, but odd. I don't know. That's really, really weird. But it's once again nice to see that these kids do have genuine pride in their parents and their abilities and their titles and their names and capabilities. The point where they're like, yeah, don't lump them in together. Don't, those frauds, those fakes, those bums. They could never be our glorious, juicy, amazing, legendary parents. And that is nice to see. But with it being the case, we see that Ilywark says, that guy with the long silver hair irks me the most. He fully deflected all my spells. What kind of magic is that? And this is where we get another weird thing. I'm assuming this is like translation or Nakama just forgetting, where Isaye says, it's not magic. What? Full counter isn't magic now? I'm sorry, I missed that balance patch. Since when is full counter not magic? I don't know. I'm going to assume once again it's a weird translation thing. As Isaye says, it's a mystical sword move. Mystical? The mystical implies? The mystical is synonymous with magic. But it's a mystical sword move, capable of repelling all offensive magic. And not even just offensive magic, like status magic. I guess static magic. Status magic can also be offensive. But we see that Ilywark is shocked as Isaye goes, it's called full counter. The fabled ability of Tristan the hero. They say his grandfather was even more adept at it. Once again, I'm going to assume this is weird translation stuff. And also, like, Isaye is also just being weird. Because they're talking as if they don't know Tristan, but they will then go on to clearly be addressed as Tristan's son. I don't know. But they also say the weird thing of, they say his grandfather was even more adept at it. Now, obviously, if Isaye was talking in the first person, this would make sense. As they said, if he said, they say my grandfather was even more adept at it, as in his grandfather Meliodas, because shock horror, Tristan's only known grandfathers are Bartra and the Demon King, neither of which knew full counter. So I'm going to assume this is once again just a chapter full of weird translation errors. But with it being the case, we see that once again, Isage's parentage, while known and obvious, is also still very, very vague, as they say. But most of all, he bore these goddess wings. I never knew anyone inherited goddess blood apart from me. Now, this may mean, when they say inherited goddess blood, I'm assuming they mean like the partial manifestation of the wings through the back, or like floating behind the back, and not actual like biological wings. Because obviously they should know their father, who naturally has goddess wings. But inherited means presumably like passed down partially, I'm guessing, not actually. He didn't know, like, unless the goddess clan is just wiped out in the future, they all should have wings. But with it being the case, Isage, who does seem to be like the pseudo like commander of the team, goes, who could they possibly be? Because I doubt they're mere charlatans posing as the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. And I do like that Isage is the first one to be like, no, those aren't fakes. They're the real deal, and we need to know why they're the real deal and what's actually happening. Because presumably they don't even know how they ended up here. Camelot is probably doing some weird like time-space stuff, and because of that, they ended up here when they realistically shouldn't be. Which would be different from Fire Emblem Awakening in the idea that it's not intentional. Meanwhile, in Awakening, it was very intentional for our future kids as adults to come back into the past to try and save the future. But with it being the case, we see Galahad say, well, sorry, I think I'm simultaneously making him too young, even though he is the same age as our cast. He's just very tiny. But Galahad goes, well, isn't that why? Isn't that the whole reason we were chosen? To make the deformed right again. And we see all the other four, or the other Holy Grail Knights, immediately lock in and nod up and be like, yeah, this is what we did. This is what we were chosen for. And we see that Galahad also declares, but no reason to get all stoogey like that. Let's warm up with these guys. And they immediately get super ganked by the many knights of Camelot, as they declare, crush them all, and send out a variety of attacks to them, only for a certain someone to no-sell the attacks, as... I keep forgetting Kadyr's name. Cardir, just name. Cardir goes, Spirit, Chastity, first form, Guardian. Now, part of me is disappointed that it basically feels like... I mean, to be fair, we don't know. Lance may still get a Spirit Spear. It's hard to tell, like, because we haven't got actually much of the Great Fairy Tree, despite it being one of the... I think the only free deity? Like, we know the Supreme Deity could very likely come back from the Graces in the very same way that the Demon King could come back from the Commandments, but they're presumably either still an incarnation or still sealed within the four Archangels, so very unlikely to be happening in that case. So the only, like, active deity from the times of Chaos creating all the deities doesn't seem to be giving out new Spirit Spears anytime soon, and we don't know their relationship with Lance. Like, how do they feel about Lance? We don't know. That's technically also their grandkid, too. I have no idea. But at least if we aren't getting new Spirit Spears, then they're all going to be ruling Chastity. It seems like Cardir directly inherited this from their mother. At least the forms are different, and this rabbit going squeak as it gets hit is covered in a pattern very akin to Nakaba's rendition of the second form Guardian, the bear. So it is a nice callback, and also variety to be put on top of the same weapon being used in different ways. But with it being the case, we see that Ilywark teleports up and immediately goes and then goes Frozen Grave, instantly sealing off multiple Chaos Knights in one singular interaction. And naturally, with the Chaos Knights seeing how viciously they're getting fried, they go, new strategy, take them out one by one. And we see that Lohengrin essentially goes in solo, no specialized magic of their own, mind you, just straight technical skill and weaving, dodging around all the attacks, and using Scattered Rose to viciously one-shot them. And now that we are seeing their different abilities in action, I think, let me clarify what I believe every, like, hybrid here is, as they are all hybrids, except for presumably Ilywark herself, because Cardir should be quarter giant, quarter human, quarter fairy, quarter life spirit, right? They should be a hodgepodge, literally a four-piece dinner right there. That's what Cardir should be. Then for Ilywark, they're just human. And for, realistically, for Lohengrin, they should be 3/4 human, 1/4 life spirit, I'm guessing, by the nature of their existence. So I do hope they have some life spirit powers. I hope they do not just end up a stab and slash merchant like their mother, because, yeah, it was really, really unfortunate. But with it being the case, we see them bob and weave, Scattered Rose, and immediately annihilate all them. But we see that she says, well, I suppose I'm not so untalented after all. What a shot of confidence for me. Thank you. Which is very, very nice. She still has very, very akin to her mother, that like very high self-esteem and self-respect, and the ability for that to falter under the right circumstances, but she immediately got it all back. And we see that it isn't just her going crazy on these nights, as Isaye goes meteor thrust and slams into this crowd of Chaos Knights, presumably with a light beam. Now, I will admit, it is very interesting that Isaye does not have Triskelion when they're utilizing their goddess eyes, and also that they are specifically using goddess stuff in general. Because remember, Isaye at this point should only be about 1/8 goddess, right? Because Tristan's currently running off on 1/4. His father's a full demon, and his mother is a demigoddess. So Elizabeth is already in half human, half goddess, and that half human is really, really strong. She presumably will die in a regular lifetime. And in that case, I think technically Isaye is like 1/4 demon, 2/4 or a half human, and 1/4. Wait, let me think about this. I don't. What is the? No. I was right. It is. He's half human because Isolde and Tristan. So Isolde's half plus Tristan's quarter. So actually, no, more than just that. Like actually, mostly human, but then like very diluted goddess blood, as Tristan should only have 25% goddess blood. He should only have 12.5, which may explain why his Triskelions don't manifest when he's using his light abilities or when he's flying. But he also should be way more demon. He should be at least 1/4 demon, I'm pretty sure. If I got the portions or the proportions correct. But with it being the case, they meteor thrust and absolutely annihilate the Chaos Guard, and naturally the army sees, oh yeah, we're getting fried, and yells, pull back! Only to run directly into Galahad, who instantly slices them all down with Matchless Limb Cutter, casually dominating all of them, and we see them all fall to the ground. And we see them go, my arms, my legs, both lie in bloody ruin. I'm sorry, I can't hit the Bale voice actor, or the, Bale! Vile Bale! It's too late for me to be in that. But we see that they're all laid out, but notably not dead. Galahad, just like his father, well, not just like his father, but like other heroes before him, does not want to simply execute his enemies. But we see that naturally when the knights ask, there were still people like you and Leonis. Who are you? And Galahad says, the Knights of the Holy Grail. Much to the confusion of this individual, as Galahad, who's clearly the shortest here, which is actually genuinely adorable, goes, we also happen to be the sons of the greatest of heroes, the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Which is interesting, that implies that the Four Knights' feats will go on to surpass the Seven Deadly Sins in notoriety, which I guess makes sense. They fought they fought creator gods that were created by a creator god, and then, presumably the Four Knights are going to take down the creator god. But with it being the case, we get a nice, cool little group shot, and we get their ages and full names revealed. So Isaye, 22, son of Tristan. Tristan will have Isaye in 4 years. Iliwark, 23, adopted daughter of Gawain. We don't know when she was adopted, but assuming she was adopted as a Babu, that makes sense. Then we have Cardis, 25, the first and eldest son of Percival. That's who Percy is currently, or I guess technically it's me, but essentially Percy's wives or lovers are pregnant right now, so these two are the oldest. The 25-year-old Lohengrin and Cardis, both the children of Percival. And then we have Galahad, the son of Lancelot. And we see that Iliwark is very insulted by the idea of being called one of the sons, and she goes, I'm a girl, And immediately also, I do love it, Lohengrin backpacks on that saying, me too, what are we doing? And Galahad immediately goes, sorry about that. And that's the end of the chapter. A nice little short, nice little sweet chapter. Mostly action. Nice way to set up the four, or I keep saying four, I'm so used to saying the Four Knights. Nice way to set up the Knights of the Grail. Overall, I'm interested to see where Knockup is going. Cautiously interested. I'm not saying I have zero faith in Knockup's pen, but I am a little bit concerned right now. But overall, a W chapter. If you made only see this video, please leave 5 new knights. 5 new knights in the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that leads to notifications so you don't miss out on any videos I come to this channel. Also, going to have a page down below. You support me for as well as one. Come on, things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. So now become a member on the channel for those $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Those perks include the 25-minute live reaction to this very chapter, and all previous chapters and all future chapters before the Apocalypse, and view races of all my videos, early after access to all my videos, early after access to not just all my videos on the main channel, but on the second channel that got the reaction, link in the description down below, along with a link to my Twitch where I stream every Friday 8 p.m. ES Tizzles. On top of that, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi down below where you drop 5 minutes of a short video. Don't know if all video or any beats at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Riddle 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, J2MA, Buddha Uda, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, DeBoy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Tim Thomas, Kaving, OrXN, Dead Mean, Keon Stewart, Edwin Idwignoba, Straw, Antavius Mitchell, Superflame Zero, Weary Exile, Alex Kenny, Todd, The Practical One, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Plan Crone, Brandon Payne, Black Sage, Multi-Batman Superman, Zalims, Joe Bean, Sleepin' John, The Young Family Pastel Pandora, Mosity King DKG, Akolade Babatunde, Union Eye, Funny Dude, Athenzi Shear, Sino King, Sheesh King, CCC, Enzo, Kitty Liddy, Axis XC, RTM, Gangatron, Praise the Sun, Striker Man, Magic, Enzreen Bonnet, Scion, John Malcolm, Black Doctor Strange, and Donovan McIntosh. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons: Dread Zoan, Kevin Encarnaus, Midnight Lord 21, and Sean. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our ink tier members: Shrimp the Fourth Shrimp 06. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our digital art tier members: Jay Warrior and AZ Void. I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Walking Munoz and Walking Munoz.